Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to In the Post, sponsored by Rally Towel Sports. Just kidding. If anybody wants to sponsor us, so they can. I am Todd. Joining me is Aaron and special guest Matt. So for the Masters tournament challenge that we did, Matt's Golf Memorial was the elected charity for donation. And Matt and I got to correspond a little bit. We talked a little bit about what Rally Towel Sports is, why we're doing it, how we ended up, working with the Memorial. And, we decided it would be best for Matt to come on here, jump on and tell us a little bit about it. So Matt, why don't you tell us what's going on over there with the Memorial?
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for what you guys are doing. It's cool that you're able to combine your love of sports and gambling along with some charity donations.
Yeah, I'm not going to win, but if somebody else can, I get it.
It's always good to offset the vices with the
yeah.
Well, I think we've dubbed the term generous degenerates. I think that's kind of what we're calling ourselves.
That's good.
Yeah,
that's good.
Generous degenerates. Yeah,
that should be the name of the podcast.
I like it.
So John Biedenhard, who the outing and the whatever you want to call it, the fundraising efforts are named after, was a fraternity brother of mine, and I met him in fall of '99 when I went to University of Cincinnati. Ended up joining that fraternity as well, and he ended up being my big brother, which I don't know how much you guys know about fraternities, but it's basically your mentor inside the fraternity. We played a bunch of golf together, became very close, and John was just one of those guys who would give you the shirt off his back. He would, he's always there for you, anything you ever needed. He wasn't one of those guys who would bail you out of jail because he'd probably be in there with you. That type of guy. So very, very close with him, and obviously very close with everyone else. John graduated UC with a chemical engineering degree in 2004, moved to Peoria, Illinois, and was just playing basketball at a park with some of his coworkers, and collapsed and died in 2005. Come to find out, it was the term is sudden death in athletes, and you guys have seen it here and there. People just Len Bias, I think, rings a bell, maybe just collapsed on the court, and that was it. The best description I've come up with over the years, it's an irregular heartbeat. It just kind of happened to misfire while he was exercising, and it killed him. So about 18 months later, I decided in his honor that we would start a golf outing, because he was a fantastic golfer. He was a state qualifier in Kentucky 3 of his 4 years in high school, and just loved the game, and brought a bunch of people brought a bunch of fraternity brothers to it, taught them how to play, showed them how, introduced them to the game. So I thought a golf outing would be a good way to memorialize him. And that started in 2006. And here we are now, almost 16 years later, planning the 16th annual event. Over the years, some things have changed. We shifted courses, shifted our philanthropy a little bit. But all told, we've raised now over $50,000 for charities in the area. The main of which we have 2 scholarships in his name at his high school. One for a science student, being an engineer, that was important to him, and then one for someone on the golf team. On top of that, we also give money to the fraternity to support them and however we can. Usually they come to me with a request, hey, Matt, we need a new couch, we need a new TV, we want to sponsor this book scholarship. So we've done that over the years. And then in the last 10 years or so, we shifted. That was a big shift in our philanthropy. Was we started taking all the leftover proceeds and buying AEDs, automatic electronic defibrillators, and donating them to local organizations who can't afford them, who could possibly benefit from them. Because the thought was that if this park that John was at had one of these, that it may have saved him. 2005 that seems like yesterday, but 2005 was 17 years ago now, and those things just weren't as readily available as they are now. So we purchased them and we donated them to places like the Eagles Club or small churches who can't afford them, organizations who can't afford them, and stuff like that. So that is the crux of the foundation.
It's awesome, man. And it's always really cool to hear about how people can try to capture somebody's life with an event, right? Something as great, something as cool, just as simple as a golf outing brings so many people together and just creates such a unique dynamic of, different people of different personalities, different cultures, and you're just out on the links having some drinks and just doing something that's really important. And I love that you guys are, as and your charitable donations are doing what you can to help out some of these smaller venues that don't have the opportunity to get Cintas in there 2 times a year to check defibrillators and do all the things that I think, when you work for a large company, you walk by it every single day. You don't realize how important that piece of equipment is to saving somebody's life. So
exactly.
We were, it was really awesome for us to, for me personally, to get to know you a little bit before you're coming on here and hearing a little bit about what you guys do. And, thank you to Chad for picking the organization that he picked. Chad's a good friend of Will's, Will is a great friend of the channel, Will Reynolds. He's an integral part of us kind of getting the networking going for getting into these events. So we're certainly, Matt and I are going to keep in contact. We're going to try to get at least two to three of us down there to get into the memorial at the bare minimum, just get down there and hang out and get some, get to know you guys on a, face to face rather than trying to do this stuff over the internet. So
sure. And we just this week I opened up registration for this year. So jbmemorial.org if anyone wants to go and register, or we also have a donation page on there if you guys just want to throw a few shekels our way. We'd certainly appreciate it.
So what we'll do is we'll either tonight or tomorrow morning we'll share the page as well on our Facebook page, and then a couple of us here on Facebook will share as well. We'll follow back up with you. We'll try to get everything set up, man. But
awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
I appreciate your all support.
Yeah, of course. Thank you again for coming on here, talking NBA playoffs. We're talking basketball, and Matt, if you do decide to stick around, there's a special little piece at the end of this that we like to so politely call "Who the fuck it is." So what I've done, so Matt, just so you're aware. My dad, rather than having me read books on summer vacation, would just give me magazines of statistics of players through like baseball and basketball. And he would just ask me questions about players, where they went to college, what their average points were for a season, whatever. And that's how I learned how to study, was my dad giving me a year of, there used to be these baseball books called Who's Who in Baseball. And if you look at the books from like 96 to 2003, they're completely torn into pieces because I'm literally just flipping through them all day long, when I probably should have been, maybe socializing with some other kids. My dad was teaching me how to read statistics. Yeah, for whatever it is, I talked to him about it a couple weeks ago because he'll occasionally tune in with my mom when she watches these, and he's like, "Man, don't make me sound like such a dick on there. I took you outside, we did stuff." I'm like, "Yeah, but it's an important part of what we do here."
Fathers have strange ways of teaching their sons things. My father taught me how to drive drive a manual transmission, not by just throwing me in a sedan. He was the road superintendent for the county I grew up in Northwest Ohio. And he threw me in a tandem axle dump truck and said, if 5 speeds are good, 16 are better. So, I don't know if you've ever been in the side of a dump truck, but you're shifting every 10 seconds when you're getting up to speed. So so instead of 4 shifts to get up to speed, I'm cranking all like as far as I can reach across the dash.
It's like throwing the donut on the bat. So now when you're actually 5 speed, it's just this little lightweight thing you're swinging.
Right. The sad part is they shift nothing alike. So I still struggle with a manual today.
Yeah, but you do wonders.
But I can drive a dump truck.
Yeah, right.
Right. Absolutely. I was gonna say your resource is much more valuable than me being able to drive a 5-speed 97 Honda Civic. So
Right. Yeah.
I'll take the dump truck experience over that. But I think let's just hop into it. So I think the first series I want to cover, which was the biggest disparity between Aaron and Corey and I, was this Brooklyn Nets Boston Celtics series, with the Celtics taking the Nets in a 4-game sweep. So Aaron, I posed a question to you. What the hell happened?
I mean, I was all over the Celtics. I honestly think, and looking at, the Middleton injury for the Bucks, I think is going to be a very big deal in the playoffs. And I think out of the East after this first round here, and I know there's still some series going on, but I think the Celtics have taken the biggest step up, where I think they have a legitimate chance of winning the East outright. I know the Heat haven't really been given, their fair share of praise this year. It's like they're the most untalked about 1 seed ever that just goes through and takes care of business with the Hawks, makes Trae Young look like absolute nothing, even though he was consistently putting up 30, 40 point games a night. And the Celtics really came out and they're the best defense in the league. And I know you guys talked about it last week, but I wasn't on. The Marcus Smart Defensive Player of the Year over, and I know you guys had Gobert. So if I can real quick, can I just make a devil's advocate for why Marcus Smart deserved that award?
Sure. We're here on the right platform. Let's do
that. Marcus Smart he's the best defender on the best defense in the league. I think you see that oftentimes when people are making the Defensive Player of the Year vote. It's kind of like the MVP, the best player on the best team, right? That's the argument for that player winning that award. And it doesn't happen every year, but sometimes it feels right to. Rudy Gobert kind of plays an old school style of center where he protects the rim very well, but he's not good at defending the 3-point line, where Marcus Smart is an amazing, amazing perimeter defender. And the way that the NBA has changed over the last couple of years, how important it is to stop the 3 ball, it to me is now more important than protecting the rim, which is kind of like that old school 80s, 90s, 2000s style of basketball. So in my opinion, it was the year for a perimeter player to win, which is the first time we've seen it since Gary Payton. And I think the defense that the Celtics showed in this series is exactly why he won the award.
Yeah, I think you look at him, and look, I think for Corey and I both, it was a disappointment that we had hyped up Gobert so much as this elite, call him a decade defender, which I still think he is. But
yeah,
you look at Marcus Smart, and you look at who he consistently is covering. The best player, right? No matter who they're playing, no matter what the size difference is, he is defending the best player. Whether it was Durant or Kyrie, whoever had the hot hand, Marcus Smart was all over him. And I think that you bringing up the point that this is the first time we've seen a guard specifically win the Defensive Player of the Year award, and I think that was like in 2003 or something like that. It was the last time when Gary Payton won that award.
Payton, right?
Yeah, and Gary Payton goes down as one of the best defenders of all time, right? You don't get the nickname the Glove without, being able to cover anyone, whatever, wherever. So, I think you can argue that, Marcus Smart is changing the trajectory. And I think he's probably really the outlier of the point guards in the NBA right now, where to me, he's a defense first. And then occasionally he has the ability to just, drop 15 to 20, but you're also guaranteed to get 4 fouls out of Marcus Smart, because I think the thing that he does that makes him such a strong defender is that he is aggressive as fuck with anybody and everybody. And I love that, because I think it goes back to it's 90s style basketball, right? You're in everybody's face no matter what. And
that's every great defender, though. There hasn't been a great defender in the history of the league that doesn't foul out every 10th game.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Right. And I think Marcus Smart also talks a lot of really good shit. And I think that makes another really good defender, right? Your ability to talk shit and to get to somebody's head makes you a better defender. And
I mean, that's the Gary Payton credo. I mean, get in their head first, and then the rest just falls in line.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I think it's a valid point. I'm not going to argue with you over Marcus Smart winning Defensive Player of the Year because you look at the statistics against him, and the proof's right there.
Well, it's just kind of nice too. In the first round, you kind of get a little bit. It's a little more defensible than it was, and I know we're always very reactionary, and frankly, that's why we do a podcast.
Right.
But I mean, he really doesn't, and I really do think the importance of guarding the perimeter, which is a very hard thing to do. There's a lot more space around you to guard as opposed to protecting the rim is. I can jump really high, I can block, and you basically have to go to this exact spot. I know where you're going, at least around the cylinder. And again, and there's part of it too is kind of just like that voter fatigue that you see. It's the same reason that LeBron didn't win 7 straight MVPs, even though you could, what I mean, like statistically, it's same thing with Giannis or Jokic has now won it twice in a row, so he's not going to win it next year. Voters do get a little bit fatigued. And then when you constantly see, and I know it's a regular season award, but look at the first round and you see that defense that Gobert is bringing isn't necessarily as valuable to the team's success, although the stats look really good.
Right. Yeah. So I think this, to segue into the Nets, brings up my second question. Is Ben Simmons the biggest piece of shit in the history of basketball?
He's up there. If he's certainly on the Mount Rushmore.
He's on the top 5. Yeah,
Latrell Sprewell choking out his coach might take it.
Yeah, choking out it's a strong term.
Yeah, I mean Ben Simmons chokes in different ways. It's just on the court,
Yeah. So I think it's funny though because you look at Ben Simmons, and he was really one of the first international players to kind of to splash into the college basketball scene as a top 5 recruit, right? That was unheard of at that point in time because guys weren't playing in Australia to go play college basketball. But when your dad has, favors with LSU's head basketball coach, you go to LSU, right? So he goes into LSU with this crazy amount of hype around him because you see all this footage of him playing basketball in Australia and the 16 and other world championships. And he's an unbelievable athlete. He could do everything. He handles the ball. He's 6'8". He could shoot, he could dribble, he could pass. And he gets to LSU and he puts up these very mediocre numbers, right? Not your number 1, number 2 overall recruit in the country numbers. You're talking about less than 15 points a game. And he basically quit on LSU like 2/3 of the way through the season, claimed an injury, and stopped playing. So then he becomes the number 1 pick, right? Following year, gets to Philadelphia, and he goes into Philadelphia and basically just throws a big turd into 76ers fans' faces, right? I mean, you see these small glimpses of, I don't even want to call it greatness. I think to me, what he was doing was living up to the expectation of being the number 1 overall draft pick, right? Being able to be a good defender, right? That was his thing first. Was he's a strong defender, but he doesn't score well. And then you get into year 2 and 3, and he starts scoring a little bit better. But then all of a sudden, Joel Embiid's 100% healthy, and you get really one of the top 5 players in the NBA. And Ben Simmons all of a sudden isn't the superstar anymore. And what does he do? He quits, gives up on Philadelphia. Basically tells him he needs to be out. Then he gets to Brooklyn. And then he just doesn't play. There's injuries, whatever you want to call it. He's more concerned about wearing lambskin short suits than playing basketball. I hate what he presents as a professional athlete, because to me, he is the example to the younger generation that you can throw a temper tantrum long enough to get your way to get to the next level. Right. And you even insert going into the 2019 FIBA World Championships, he had committed to play for Australia, which was a huge deal. And Australia plugs this USA Australia game. That was their first matchup is like Ben Simmons versus the United States. Well, 2 weeks before they're supposed to play, Ben Simmons says he's not going to play in the FIBA World Championships. So disrespects his teammates, his country. I I can't stand for the lack of moral character there for Ben Simmons, and I want to hear what you guys think about him as well.
Yeah, I mean, he is. I mean, you basically just outlined it. I mean, he's completely unreliable as a player. He's just kind of one of those guys that he doesn't seem to have that just love for the game, although physically gifted. You know, if I was 6'9", 6'10", I'd probably, and I, just had God-given ability. Like, what am I going to do? Just be a plumber? No, I'm going to go ahead and make $20 million a year being a basketball player, even though I don't love it. There are people who don't love their job. And I think us as outsiders just kind of look and be like, well, how can you not love that? You're a professional athlete. You have everything that you want. Some people that just isn't what they want to do. And Ben Simmons kind of gives me those vibes. And sometimes I like doing cross sports analogies, but I just kind of get that like Jamarcus Russell vibe.
I was gonna say Jamarcus Russell.
Then please, no, please, I like it's that same first overall pick. Just doesn't have that love for the game, like physically gifted beyond belief, but you just don't really see it. So Matt, no, I mean you and I are thinking the same thing. Yeah. So what's making you say that?
He's clearly he's got the toolbox, he's got the skill set to do it, but he wants all the trappings. He wants the lambskin suits, and he wants the $1 million contracts and the attention, but he wants to put in none of the work, and he needs to be the big man on campus, and there's very few places where he can go and be that. He's just not that guy. He's not that dude.
Yeah, I think the thing for Ben Simmons too is that he's not personable, right? That also hurts him. I think that's one of his biggest hindrances is that he does all of these things that, when you're looking from the outside in, you're like, what the hell is he doing? He's just a shitty guy. And then he completely doesn't ever try to defend himself, or somebody's telling him just to basically stay silent. And then you just keep thinking that he sucks, because the only thing you ever hear is him saying, I want to be traded. I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. And the perception of him is just bad. And I'm really interested to see how Brooklyn bounces back from this, because I think that even Brooklyn was surprised they got swept, right? I mean, you throw Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant on the floor, you don't think that you're going to just get swept in a series, right? We've talked about it on here, over the last couple of weeks. When you play in a best of 7, you got to win at least one, right? That's what the odds say. Well,
with two of the top 5 players in the league, absolutely, you got to win a series, not
right. Yeah, but the other thing too is, I mean, we had watched some Nets games with Kyrie back after the mandate was dropped and he was eligible to play the home games again. You can have 2 guys go for 30 points a game, and that's still only 60 points. You know what I mean? Right. You can't consistently win that way, although it helps. You know what I mean? To have a guy you can go to, more importantly, to go to in the fourth quarter and just get you a bucket when they become increasingly more valuable than just, draining 2 threes in the second quarter. Right. But all those add up to the final score. So I think the thing for the Nets is, where do they go from here? Because I never would have said this before, but I kind of feel bad for Durant. And I only do in the sense of, he can retire tomorrow and he's a first ballot Hall of Famer at this point. But,
sure.
The talk around the league when you look at Durant is, yeah, you have 2 rings, but you had to join a 73 win team in order to get those rings. So I think he wants to get one more to say, I was the top dog on the team. It was my team that won it. And I think on a personal level, that's something that he wants. And when you look at it, he is around 2 of the most unreliable guys in the NBA you possibly could be around. I mean, Kyrie Irving hasn't played more than 67 games in the last 5 years. You know what I mean? Like, that's not even talking about Ben Simmons. And granted, last year was a lockout season. It was a shortened season, or I'm not lockout, but from the shortened season due to the pandemic. And obviously, him being injured or the mandate thing and not wanting to, get vaccinated, so he couldn't play. I understand that's different than injury, but that's still unreliability. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then Ben Simmons, you already said it. He missed his first year, fully sat out. And I get it. They wanted to protect him at the end, but he certainly was healthy enough to play at the end to, play the last 10 games. And there's also just frankly not playing this year because, it was, I don't know if it was pride, I know he was claiming mental health, and I certainly don't want to make light of any of that. Sure. But from the outside looking in, the optics just are not good around either of those 2 players. And their value has never been lower. You know what I mean? So where do you
Right.
really go from here?
Right. Yeah. And I think that's a great question to ask if you're looking at Brooklyn over the next 3 years, right? What is the true value of that franchise right now? Because Kyrie Irving is just really a overly opinionated, kind of outspoken. I mean, he still has the ability to be a superstar, but he's allowed the ability to be in the public spotlight kind of overshadow his ability. And again, the lack of being healthy for him has hindered him from his first season, from his freshman year at Duke, all the way up until right now. When I think of Kyrie Irving, I think of him constantly having a shortened season, whether it's injuries, whatever. I mean, how many healthy seasons has he actually had? It has to be less than 5 at this point, right?
For Kyrie?
Yeah.
He has never played 80. I actually have it up. I have the basketball reference up because I knew he hadn't played a lot of games the last couple of years. The most he has ever played in a season was 14-15, where he played 75 games. But of course, if you remember, that was the year he got injured in the playoffs and the finals,
Right?
Which a lot, and then 72 in Cleveland his last year there. But in Boston, his second year, he played 67 games. Certainly availability has always been an issue with him. And, he's a small guard who attacks the rim and plays an aggressive style of game. I'm not, when he's been out there, he's an absolute all-star. He's probably, in my opinion, the best dribbler I've ever seen. And I remember Allen Iverson and, probably in the same tier, but for me, just from a style standpoint, Kyrie's handle is better than anyone's I've ever seen. And selfishly, he won me a championship that I never thought I'd see in my life. So that's my, he was my guy, and then he requested, you know what I mean? So it's like, he's a weird guy. Like he's flat earth, anti-vax, like, that's fine. You can have your opinions. It's just,
are we having this conversation if he's not that weird guy? If he just stays quiet, is he just a normal quote unquote all-star?
Yeah. His game is great. That's actually what I'm saying is
right.
He already is a great player, but there's all these distractions that come with it. Would you rather have Kyrie Irving not knowing how many games he's going to play, whether it be due to injury or whether it be due to him sticking his foot in his mouth? Or would you rather have, like, I don't know, Drew Holiday, who is just a warrior who shows up to work every day with his lunch pail, and I don't got to go worry about what the hell is going to happen next week and be the talking point.
Yeah, Matt, I think that's a great point. We're not having this conversation remotely if it's Kyrie Irving, the unselfish, soft-spoken, ball handling point guard. We're talking about Kyrie because Kyrie has put himself into this platform, right? He's allowed himself to be viewed by the general sports fan as this kind of outlandish, maybe blissfully ignorant athlete who is taken to social media to share every single opinion that anybody would be willing to hear. So it sucks for Kevin Durant. That's my take on it. And Aaron said it too. I think Kevin Durant's one of those guys that when you look at pure scorers that have played professional basketball, who's the best of all time, and I think Kevin Durant's in that conversation. I don't know if there's ever been anybody that's played basketball that can just shoot at will from anywhere. I mean, obviously you have Steph Curry in that conversation now at this point, but Kevin Durant's ability at his size to do anything and everything makes him, to me, one of the top 10 best players that have ever played basketball. Because him and LeBron were the foundation that laid out the Giannis's entering into the NBA and becoming who they are. And Kyrie, or I'm sorry, and KD's always going to live in this world where he wasn't great enough to go and get titles on his own. He's a ring chaser, and I hate that for him because you look at what he is, and he's just not that at all. He's not a ring chaser. I think he's a guy that's trying to get paid.
It's unfortunate. If there's if you're walking down a court with 5 seconds left, there's not many other people on the planet that I want in the hands, the ball in the hands of than the Slim Reaper. I mean, he's it.
Fact.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. But it's the fact that he lost to that team in the playoffs. I think they had a lead in that series and they lost to the Warriors when it was him and Westbrook on the Thunder. It's the optics of joining the team that beat you in order to get that ring. And it was also the weird situation where all the new money was poured into the NBA at that point, so the cap excelled. The Warriors should have never been in a position to have the cap room with the guys that they had to even be able to afford Durant. It wasn't even just Durant joining the Warriors. It was just this weird offseason where it timed out where everyone basically just had $20 million worth of cap space all of a sudden.
Right.
So he basically got the pick of the litter to go wherever he wanted, and he chose the easy route. And listen, I know we're in the super team era, the player empowerment era. I just think, but I also get why he does it, because you look at guys like Charles Barkley, Patrick Ewing, who never got that ring but still had fantastic careers, but we're not allowed to act like they were great players because they never won a championship, even though it's a lot easier said than done. You know what I mean? So I understand why players go out and try to get that championship, or you see it all the time at their end of their careers. Remember that Lakers team that got swept by the Pistons, where it was just like a Karl Malone, Gary Payton, like just all like, hey, I'll whatever, just put me on the roster. And, they never got it. Well, I guess Gary did when he went to Miami, but that point standing is just, I get why players do that, but I think a ring for Durant in any other situation where he's the top guy and it's his team is going to mean more than the two that he's already won.
Agreed.
Sure.
That you brought up a good point. That's the point I wanted to make before we change this, or wanted to discuss before we change topics, is what does, because I shouldn't say I hate it, but I don't like super teams. I'm not a fan of it. The NBA I grew up with was in the late 80s, early 90s. You stuck with your team, you wrote it out. Jordan had a lot of shitty seasons before he ever won a title. He could have easily bailed and went somewhere else. Maybe not easily, but in this era, he could have easily bailed and went somewhere else.
Sure.
What does Boston sweeping what I would call a super team? Does that have any merit in maybe other franchises thinking maybe super teams aren't the way to go?
Yeah, I mean, sure. I think there's only so many different ways you can build a team in the NBA. The salary cap is so much more real than it is in football, where it's just like, all right, voided years, non-guarantees. It's a lot harder to maneuver through that. Not to mention in trades, you have to take back, 125% if it's over of the salary, where you have to match salaries in order to make trades. So it becomes a lot harder. And when you're a really good team, you're going to be picking later in the draft. So it's not like you can just stock your team with young talent. So when you have the last pick in the first round, and again, I like doing cross sports analogies, you're basically, your first round pick is, you don't get to pick until like the third or fourth round when you dilute the talent like that between 2 rounds as opposed to 7. So it's a lot harder to stock your pantry. So I get why teams do it. The goal is to get as many good players as you can under contract for as long as you can in their prime. But going back to the Warriors before they got Durant, and like you said with the Celtics, it's so much better to see those organic teams. Yeah. That's why I think people were upset when Durant went to the Warriors, because they drafted Steph, they drafted Clay, they drafted Draymond in the second round and got amazing value. That's a really cool story to see a team that, builds through the draft, and you see a GM, do that. And then same thing with the Celtics. They trade back to get Tatum. They gave up that first round pick to Philly to take Fultz. They knew what they were doing. I love seeing that stuff. There's just only so many ways to do it. And what we do know is if you don't have a top 7 player, you're not winning a championship outside of those random, Pistons teams, or, that's the sum of all parts. Basketball is so much more different than that, where you need a top 7 guy to win a championship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that the the Lakers are in the same circumstances.
Exactly. That's why. Yeah. Other good point.
It's even worse, right? Because we saw where injuries and some miscommunications, let's call them, turned into, that was an abysmal season for LA. I mean, you're talking about a team that has 3 of the top 10 players in the NBA on the floor at the same time, and they don't even make the playoffs, right? Yeah. So, I think that there's just proof that it's not like baseball where you can buy rings. It's not necessarily that way. I think Aaron's right. It takes one guy plus 2 to 3 years of making the correct moves, whether it's securing that. Really, because you get to the end of the first round of the NBA draft, you're drafting to a situational player or somebody that you see filling in the long term, right? If you're a good team, you're drafting late in the first round or in the second round, you're filling a hole. But they even look at the Suns, right? The Suns went from being an abysmal organization 5-6 years ago, where their best player was PJ Tucker, to now there's a good opportunity that they make it to the NBA Finals in back-to-back seasons. And a lot of that was done through drafting 2 or 3 really good talents and then filling the gap. And then you throw Chris Paul in there as veteran leadership. And that's your, Chris Paul's the guy that kind of puts the cherry on top of the sundae, because he takes a guy like Devin Booker, who has the ability to be an absolute superstar, and gives him veteran leadership and guidance to how to maneuver through kind of the bullshit that the NBA brings you team to team. So,
yeah. No, I mean, you had seen it, and I know Booker's injured now, but we had seen it where Devin Booker was basically on the same level as like Karl Anthony Towns, where it was like great stats, good offensive player, not a winner. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
It sometimes you need that veteran player that comes in, that kind of steadies the ship, or steadies the waters, or however you want to say it. But no, I think that's a great point. And Todd, I know we got some people talking in the chat, which we appreciate, Ryan and Dale. So yes. I actually want to get to Ryan's question here. If you could start a franchise with one player, who would it be? And Ryan's got Ja Morant.
That's a great choice.
Dale's saying John and Doncic are the future of the league. Who do you guys take? If you're starting a franchise, let's throw everybody in the fantasy draft. Who's the number one pick? I know who I got.
All right, let's have Matt start, and then I'll throw my pick in.
Ja's a great choice. Especially the last couple of weeks, man, he has just been crushing it. That's what Dale said. I think I pick one of those too. Luka's insane too, and they're just good dudes too.
I think Luka's the better pick of the two. Personally, I'm still taking Giannis. He's 27 years old. He's still got a lot of tread on the tires. He's a champion. He's a winner, and he's the most unique player in the league. I understand the Ja and the Doncic picks. To me, it would definitely be Luka over Ja, because I still have just the way that Ja Morant plays with just reckless abandon and such a small body frame like that.
Yeah, how long can he do that, right?
I'm so worried about his longevity. So if I'm doing a fantasy draft, I have to think about that stuff. He's without a doubt a top 10, 15 pick if you're doing the fantasy draft. But I think Doncic probably goes 2, but I'm taking Giannis. I'm going Giannis number 1 still. There's so much tread left on those tires.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was going to say Giannis as well. I just think that you look at what he has done in his career, and bringing a championship to Milwaukee that's an incredible resume builder for him, and continuing to be an elite scorer in an ever challenging league where everybody says that there's not defense played. Who gives a shit? I mean, you go out there and play against the best players in the world playing professional basketball, right? And tell me who's playing defense or not. But Giannis is just one of those guys that it doesn't, like, you watch him play. So I've had the opportunity to watch him play in person as well in Indianapolis when they played the Pacers, and to watch him play in person and to see the way that he navigates the floor. Like when you're younger and you're playing, maybe a competitive level of sport. Let's say you're playing AAU basketball or travel baseball, and you're playing against a team, and you just see that one kid that's playing shortstop, or the kid that takes the tip off and then he's the point guard, and you're like, wow, this kid is way different than everyone else. Giannis is still that in the NBA. Giannis is that guy to me, because not
he's
only
playing against world-class athletes, and he still sticks out with a sore thumb.
That's my point, right? And
I agree.
You throw him, and you throw him even on the defensive side of the ball, and he's a great defender.
Yeah,
he's not a slouch as a defender either. So yeah, I'm taking Giannis. Giannis still, in my opinion, the way that he plays, he still has probably 8 to 12 more years in the NBA. I think that you look at a guy like John Moran, and I always have these. I look at John Moran, I have these like Derrick Rose flashbacks. That's what I think of when I think of John Moran.
100%.
Because you look at the
okay.
so Bobby and I were driving back from the gym Saturday morning, and we were talking specifically about young guys in the NBA and what their impact has been to how the game has really transitioned into this kind of jump shot first, attack the basket second, and the anomaly that is the dribble drive, right? That's kind of gone to the wayside because everybody's a shooter now. John Moran is not a shooter. John Moran is still a dribble drive player. And then so that brought up Derrick Rose in that MVP year. And that was one of the most special NBA. That was one of the most special seasons we've ever seen from an NBA player ever.
Mm-hmm.
And Derrick Rose has done an excellent job of overcoming the objection that has been his body and becoming, what he's had to do to similar to Vince Carter to just stay in the NBA and continue to win and play.
Right.
And I could see John Morant going down a similar path in the next 3 to 5 years, because you're right. There's only that. The time clock to be that aggressive for 45 minutes is small, right? There's a reason why running backs don't play in the NFL for 15 years, why Adrian Peterson's a one-off, an outlier in the NFL. Running backs play for 8 to 10 years because they literally get the shit kicked out of them 30 times a game, and they're going up against guys that are double their size that are throwing them around the field. It's the same thing with John Morant. John Morant's running into a 6'10" brick wall 25 times a night. So I just don't see I don't see the longevity from him. Luka has the longevity between the two of them.
Yeah, Luka's, and for lack of a better word, Luka's doughy, and he doesn't embrace contact. Like, you know what I mean? Like he's going to be fine getting bumped around. I'm worried about, and I actually love the Vince Carter pull on that, because Vince Carter had the ability to stay in the league for a long time, but he did so by changing his game entirely. You know, for the last 12 years of Vince Carter's career, he wasn't, dunk contest Vince Carter. He was, 3-and-D guy, really, which is crazy because he was a terrible defender at the beginning of his career. So, it's just that's the difference between the Ben Simmons type and let's say the Vince Carter type, where, he especially when his athleticism started to fade, Vince Carter, I think, started to realize how much he needed basketball, and he actually started to embrace it. Because you could argue the first 8 years of his career, he didn't really have that, and he didn't really have that killer instinct, or he was just like, I'm more athletic than everybody out here. I have that God-given ability. I can just show up and play. But no, that's a great comparison from the longevity standpoint. Which one are we going to see? I think this is a good segue too, because we had talked about this 2 weeks ago, last time I was on, Todd. John Morant just won most improved player. You and I both had Jordan Poole, and I'm curious how you feel about a player like John Morant winning most improved player when he was rookie of the year, number 2 pick, and does that really jive with the spirit of the award?
No. So John Morant to me is on the exact trajectory that you want a number 2 pick to go on, right? You throw all your money on the line for a lottery pick. You expect them to go out and perform the way that he performs. I think that you look at a guy like him, and I don't think that he's improved his game, but he's also now better acclimated to the NBA and figured out where he could kind of find his niche. And John Morant is also a guy that gets a lot of garbage points. So I don't want to take away from his ability, but if you look at his ability to score, a lot of it is late third, early fourth, when Memphis is already up by a bunch. He gets a lot of points there. But it just doesn't feel like that's a most improved player. Like I don't want to take anything away from John Morant, because I think he's a great athlete. He's fun. He's super fun to watch. He's made this series an enjoyable series to watch. And this is Minnesota and Memphis's time to get primetime television, because they just don't get that because they're not in the market for it. But I would have even taken Murray from San Antonio over John Morant, right? Because he was second in voting, and I don't know.
Yeah, biasedly, I was like, oh, hey, Darius Garland had a good year, but no, he didn't deserve. I like Jordan Poole, Murray. Those are good picks. For the spirit of the award, a number 2 overall pick who's already won Rookie of the Year Like, to be most improved, you would have to like somehow have a season where you're playing on one leg, averaging 6 points a game, and then you come back and win. You score 20.
Right.
He's just continuing the trajectory of a number 2 overall pick who won Rookie of the Year to me. I don't know, Matt. What do you think? Is that?
No, that's a valid point. To be most improved, there has to be some sort of improvement. And
he's just great.
Just continuing that trajectory is not really. No, yeah,
that's how I felt. But also at the same time, like it was one of we all saw the leap this year. You know what I mean? He certainly was an improved player. There's no doubt about that. We all saw it, and I think from the three of us, I think we all agree that he's an insanely exciting player to watch. It just makes me nervous every time I see him play.
Yes.
Dale out there again, Murray State, baby. Dude's a legend there. You bet. That guy's not paying for beers at Murray State ever.
Never.
No. Now that he can legally drink them too.
Yeah, and also Vince Carter was a dog, one of the most underrated of our generation. Totally agree.
I think people forget that him and Tracy McGrady played on the Raptors together. That was a pretty special time for basketball because that was two of the top 10 scorers on the floor together who were also somehow related, which is crazy how that works.
Yeah, they're like cousins, right?
Yeah, they were like first or second cousins, but at that point in time, T-Mac was dropping 30 a night, and Vince Carter was
freak athletes, both of them.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Well, the crazy thing too is
15 feet.
And here's the thing we were talking about with the Durant or the Barkley or whatever, that kind of thing. Never won a ring, either of them. Understand that, but that doesn't mean they weren't great players in their own right. You know what I mean? I honestly think because Vince Carter just retired last year, I believe.
Yeah, last year was
his ability to stay in the league for as long as he did was his most impressive thing to me because he just wasn't that same player for the last 8 or 10 years. And he was just, I don't mind coming off the bench. I'll score 8 points a game. I'll stand in the corner. I'll do what I have to do. He just wanted to be around the game of basketball. And while still being that veteran leader and contributor, and although we'll remember Vince Carter for dunk contest and elbow dunking, and also dunking over a dude in the Olympics, which is probably the greatest dunk in professional basketball of all time.
That's spectacular.
I will honestly, the thing I'm most impressed about his career was his longevity because there's no reason a guy like that should have played for that long. Those guys that are freak athletes like that tend to burn out.
Yeah, so I want to look up a stat because I'm fairly certain that he is actually in the top 20 all time for most 3-pointers made as well.
Yeah, that's crazy.
When you play for 20 years, you're going to make a lot of shots.
Play for 20 years, and then 20 years before you played, they didn't even have a 3-point line. That's your stat to keep.
So he is sixth all time in 3-pointers made.
Yeah,
which I think is crazy because I remember him as being able to jump 13 feet, and basically it was like NBA Jam where he's jumping and boom, 15 feet all the way, jumping right through the net. Yeah. Right. But at one point in time, Vince Carter was shooting like close to 45% from the 3-point line. I just think that's your ability to adapt and change to the game and understanding your body. And, like you said, you play for 20 years, you're bound to crack the top 10 for something. Hopefully, if you're good.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing too, is those guys who can stay in the league for so long, when your athleticism goes, as long as you have your range out there and you have that basketball IQ, you at least have a role. And you kind of saw that too with Jason Kidd. He was a terrible 3-point shooter. And towards the end of his career, he was just hitting 40% because he was like, well, I have to figure this out.
Yeah.
Or I'm fucking
if I want to be relevant, I got to do this. Yeah, absolutely.
And, loving the chat tonight. Ryan.
Yeah.
Allen Iverson is the Mike Vick of basketball. Like, I love the cross sports. Love the cross sports analogies, so I'm digging that for sure, Ryan.
Are we talking criminal records too, or are we just talking athleticism?
We're just talking comparisons, and I get it.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, because it all checks out. I mean, same state, basically same geographical area they're from.
Well, yeah, right? And Allen Iverson was like a freak quarterback.
Freak athlete on the football field.
Yeah.
Well, the reason he went to Georgetown is because he was going to get to be a professional athlete sooner, right? Wasn't that his reason why he picked to go to Georgetown instead of playing college football? Because he was going to have to be in college for 3 years if he wanted.
You have to put. Yeah,
I think that's what he said. I'd have to go to college for 3 years to get my money. I got my money in 2 years if I go play basketball.
But he was little too, though. He wasn't going to last very long in the NFL.
Yeah, no, and especially then too. Like Mike
Yeah.
Vick came along a little bit later than Allen Iverson, where
Yeah.
you know, a 5'10" quarterback like that isn't really, and 5'10", he's a little taller than that, but you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
in football comparison, he's a little guy.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, that
Yeah.
that
There
style
were-
of quarterback wasn't really there yet.
Right. There weren't very many Doug Flutys floating around in the NFL
Yeah,
at that point in
right.
time. He was an anomaly. So Ryan also made a comment about the Reds, and you know, I'm a baseball guy, so I just want to read this real quick because I think this is funny. He said, "I'm happy the Reds are bringing a crowd of 2,000 people. I missed a
Well,
baseball
it's-
podcast, so I just need to mention one thing about
It's-
baseball.
it-
Ryan,
it's-
you didn't miss the baseball podcast because we didn't do it last night. So I think Matt, you're a Cincinnati native, or you're a Cincinnati resident now, correct? So what is your opinion on the current situation that is the Cincinnati Reds?
Well, I have made two continuous statements on the Reds for the last month or so. The first being they will see $0 of my family's money this year. I will probably, even if I'm gifted tickets, I will probably not go because I won't give them my beer money or my hot dog money.
Right.
The second is it's a good thing the Bengals are playing well. Because I don't know. I'm sure Cleveland is the same way. I don't know. You guys don't have a lot of pro teams in Columbus, but this city is so much nicer when the teams are winning.
Oh yeah,
And
100%.
it was amazing. The last 4 or 5 months in this city with the Bengals going to the Super Bowl, it's been the best time to live here. And the joke I've made is that it's almost like Castellini and Brown have just switched desks. It's like Mike Brown is now managing the Reds, and Castellini, who used to be
great.
Who used to be in favor of spending money, is managing the Bengals.
I think it's funny because Mike Brown was also smart enough to realize that he needed to press the Staples help button to make decisions for the Bengals.
It only took him 20 years, but yeah.
Sure. But you're right, man. Look, I think you're absolutely right. You know, I'm only going to one Reds game this year. And it's because my brother is having his bachelor party and that's what he wants to do. And I even said,
Fair.
hey, is there literally anything else that you want to do? It's your
Anything.
bachelor party.
Anything
I'm
at
here
all.
for you. But like, is there anything else that you want to do? He's like, let's go to the Reds game. Fine. I'm not wearing any red shit. That's my counter.
boycott.
To that,
Swear
I mean,
black.
you combine the two Ohio baseball teams' payrolls, and you're not even like the Dodgers.
Yeah.
and
That's so.
and also
That's what frustrates me so much about baseball is that they have a cap, but do they?
No, they don't. But that's the thing is the three major sports are so different in how the finances are set up. And I'm obviously a huge sports fan. I absolutely love the business side of it. Like if I'm playing a sports video game, I'm spending all my time on the roster and simulating the games. Like I'm that guy. Like I fucking love that shit. So to me, it's like if you're gonna own a professional team, like own it. You know what I mean? Like I could never, with my competitiveness as a billionaire, just be like, yeah, we're fine. We're going to turn a profit. I'm like, no, let's go out there and fucking win. And I understand not spending money to spend money and burn it because you're a business guy and that's how you got there to get all that money. But also at the same time, like this is your fucking baby. This is your prized possession. It would be like spending a shitload of money on a car and being like, new windshield wipers. Are you fucking crazy? Like,
Right.
dude, seriously, that's the bare minimum. And you're like, I'm putting 87 fuel in this thing. I don't give a shit. It's cheaper.
Yeah. Right.
Right. That's a great.
That's
a real life analogy there that I appreciate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just have concerns with baseball in general that if things
Yeah, me
don't
too.
get changed or modified, a small market team just doesn't stand a chance, and that's what Cincinnati is.
Yeah. So here's the scary thing. So Oakland averages less than 10,000 fans a game. I just want you guys to think about that. A professional sports team that has a 30,000 seat stadium averages 7,500 people for a home game.
There are minor league teams that pull in better numbers than that.
The Dayton Dragons, I think, get damn near close to that for a home game. And I think that only seats 5,500 people. I think there's more people that stand in left center field than at a Dragons game than go to a fucking A's game, which that's fine, whatever. I'm at a point now, and we'll get back to basketball, where Oakland, Dave Stewart just needs to take his group of executives that are in Nashville, drive their ass out to Oakland, strong arm the A's, say, you're bringing everybody here. Don't worry about it. Daddy's got you. We'll take care of you. and you bring it to Nashville, where there's going to be fans that actually give a shit about baseball. Because clearly the Raiders didn't work. The A's are certainly not working. Put them in a more, I'll call it affluent city, where there's more consistent money flowing through the town, and there's not so much concern for, where do I go when I leave the stadium, right? When you're in Nashville, where they're planning this baseball stadium in Nashville, you're basically a snowball throw away from also being in the mountains. So like, what's the issue with that? Can you imagine being at a Nashville Stars game, and then you spend the rest of the weekend, traveling through the Smoky Mountains because it's only a 2-hour drive? Like that's a pretty good town to have a professional sports team. But
no, I mean,
baseball sucks right now, though. As a diehard baseball fan who has lived and breathed by it for 31 years of my life, this is the least amount of baseball I've ever watched.
There's one shining light right now in baseball, and it's, tell me you guys have heard about the Savannah Bananas.
Of course.
Okay, yeah. They're the one shining light for me in baseball right now.
I was gonna say Ohtani, but no, that's
okay. All right, sure. Yeah. That's pretty good. Yeah,
that one's cool. That one's fun.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. Tell us for people who don't know, just tell us about the Savannah Bananas.
Oh, it's a minor league team in Savannah, Georgia, and they're doing everything that they can possibly come up with to create some interest and some fun. Everywhere from synchronized dances in the infield to a batter coming into the batter's box with his bat on fire.
I saw that
just
one.
Just fun stuff.
Yeah, that's
guy coming to bat on stilts.
I mean, baseball's supposed to be fun. That was my first love. Like, that was the sport that I played competitively that I was best at. Like, I loved basketball, but I was better at baseball, even though I loved basketball more. Mm-hmm. So, and there was also something about like being a kid in the summer where it was like, I have my summer off and I can stay up and watch the Indians at the time, Guardians now, across in LA playing a 10 o'clock first pitch because I can stay up till 1 o'clock. I can't do that stuff anymore. So it's a really grueling season for fans, like myself now, where I just don't have the same time to like just really obsess about it. But baseball is such an obsessive sport where sports nerds, I would say, kind of flock to, because there's all these numbers that you can basically boil baseball down to just pure statistics, and it's really interesting. And I can get into that kind of stuff too. So it's tough though. It's
they made
tough.
a movie about it.
Yeah, Moneyball. It's one of my favorite sports movies ever. It's so good. I mean, as I said earlier, I'm the guy who fucking simulates the games in the video game just so I can I can tool the roster.
Oh shit. All right. Well, get to a couple comments here. Ryan said crime goes down when the sports team does well. That's a fact. I mean, with how shitty the Reds are still playing. No. lot of
pissing in public.
A lot of Deweys, a lot of stuff like that. Whatever. Where's physical violence goes down because everybody's hugging each other because they're so happy about their team being good. Dale with the comment: Reds are shitty. Yep. Go support a good Cincy team like the Cyclones. They are in the playoffs, searching for a Kelly Cup. So if you like the UHL, tune into that.
The Cyclones games are good times. I took my kids who were little over there, and we had a blast. We sat on the glass, and the guys would come up and intentionally, knock my kids off the wall. They really catered to the fans.
You know what? Minor leagues do a really good job of making it family friendly, because that's the thing is when you're a minor league team, you're not competing with the other hockey team, or there's a team around me. They're called the Lake Erie Crushers. It's a minor league team, even though they have no affiliation with baseball. You're not competing with the Guardians. You're competing with every other family entertainment. You know what I mean? That's your competition. And to allow kids to get that close to the sport, they don't really care at that point who's good, who's bad. Is this the top level of talent? It's all about the experience, the enjoyment, the event. Man, I've been to some. They do a really, really good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're a Cincinnati person, if we're going to talk like going to a formerly Florence Freedom, now Florence.
I used to work for them.
The Y'alls.
Really?
The Y'alls.
The Florence Y'alls, but I worked for them when they were the Florence Freedom. Down there in Florence, Kentucky. I spent a summer in Cincinnati, and it was like an internship in college.
Yeah, it's a great organization. it's good baseball, because baseball is one of those sports where, for me, regardless of the level, it's if you're there and you're watching it in person, you understand what you're watching. It's entertaining,
Yeah.
right? Because guys that play in I think it's the Frontier League, right? I
Yeah,
think that's
Frontier
what it's
League.
called,
That's where the Crushers are in. Yeah.
yeah, like that's still good baseball. And those guys are either fighting for a final, this is their final chance to crack into a major league organization somehow, some way, or they know that this is it for them, and they want to play baseball at the most competitive level that they're qualified for. And I've had former teammates that have played for the Freedom, or I've played within the Frontier League, guys that when we were playing were top 100 in the state, and it was awesome. And now they're they got to play for the Freedom for a couple of years, and one of the guys threw like a one hitter when he was in like 2015 or 16 for the Freedom, and basically called it quits after that. I was like, yep, that's as close as I'm ever going to get to perfection. I'm done. Call it. Now I'm going to start a career. But I think minor leagues as a whole did an excellent job trying to hold on to the fan base, especially in baseball. But the problem is that you've already lost so much touch with people at the major league level that you're gonna there's too much hurt that's already been done, and now it's going to take forever to get the shit back, and it's a mess.
Yeah,
absolute mess.
Well, before
Dale
we turn this into a baseball podcast, oh no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so Dale also, before we get, we'll get back to basketball, but Dale also plays in something called the A7FL, which is like a crazy, like full contact, limited pad 7-on-7 league. It's pretty entertaining to watch. I've plugged it on the channel. I'll plug it again. Looks like his team's playing somewhere. I'm assuming, I think they played at Taft High School's football stadium down in Cincinnati somewhere. They're playing there on Sunday as well. But back to basketball. Let's talk about what could arguably be one of the most interesting series of the playoffs thus far, with that being the Pelicans and the Suns. And gentlemen, my question to you is Brandon Ingram the real deal?
Yeah, he's one of those players that I kind of just keep going back and forth on of, is he good? Is he not? Like, obviously he's good. He's been an all-star. We see his points per game. Like when you just look at his just frontline stats, it's pretty easy to be like, oh yeah, no, this guy's a really good player. Yes, I think is the short answer. But I think what you're seeing is, obviously they didn't have Zion all year. So last year when Zion was playing the full year, you're just not getting, that's going to be the guy who's the number one. I think Brandon Ingram is best suited as a 2 at best. At a championship level, he's the third best guy on your team. I don't think he's ever going to be the number one player on a team that can win a championship, and that's okay. It's kind of like that Carmelo Anthony, right? Where and I know he's never won a championship, but I had always said during Carmelo's career, that guy will never be the best player on a championship team. And I always believed that. And Ingram's kind of the same way, where, yeah, he does a lot for you. He's going to score the ball a lot, but he's never going to be a number one. So if Zion can come back healthy, I think that's the thing, is you're seeing a team right now competing with the Suns, and obviously Booker being out. But the Pelicans were a team that had to win 2 games in 3 nights just to get into the playoffs, and now they're competing handedly with the best record in basketball.
Yeah, I tend to actually lean. I actually think the other way towards Brandon Ingram. I think that he has shown that he has the ability to possess some real legitimate greatness. And here's my devil's advocate to you. I don't think I like the Carmelo Anthony kind of argument, because I think you could almost say, like, all right, well, is Monta Ellis great? No, Monta Ellis had to score 35 points a night for the Warriors because they were garbage, and he was the only guy that could score. Right. So I kind of have that battle back and forth on Ingram. It's like, all right, is he scoring this much because he has to, or can he do this with, an insert of Zion or whomever it's going to end up being? Because who knows if Zion's going to be able to drop the 55 pounds he's going to have to drop to be able to play again next year based on his current physical presentation. But I think Brandon Ingram is one of those guys that he legitimately has. He's like a mental breakthrough away from from being an NBA superstar. I just don't know if he's had the right opportunity to get to the platform to show that he has that superstardom. Because I think even in LA, in that brief time that he was there, I think that his ability was just overshadowed. And this is the best possible platform for him to prove his greatness. Is you're going up against the number one team, and you're the glue that's put the series at 3-2, right? I don't think there's anybody else in New Orleans that's given you the stuff to compete with the Suns. And again, there's no Devin Booker. Let's call that 30 points a night, right? That's a huge difference for Phoenix, but New Orleans is doing, and Ingram, they're doing exactly what they're supposed to do in this situation. The best player for the Suns isn't playing. You play them as aggressive as you can, and you force the ball off the perimeter. That's Devin Booker and Chris Paul and those guys. They make their money on the perimeter because that's what sets up a guy like DeAndre Ayton for an alley-oop or whatever they have to do to get the ball to the rack. And you've seen the frustration in this series so far, right? You saw Jay Crowder and Jackson Hayes get into it when Jackson Hayes basically went full spear into Jay Crowder in in that game on Saturday, where I don't know if you guys saw that or not, but it was pretty early on in the game. There was Crowder and Hayes were kind of, they were chippy with each other back and forth. I think Ingram even was the one that threw up the shot, and Jackson Hayes just full spreaded into Jay Crowder and just completely knocked him on his ass. And I think that for a guy like Jackson Hayes, who to me, I watch him play, and I think maybe it's just like mental immaturity, because you watch him play when he actually gets some minutes. He has the ability to be like a double-double consistently a night guy. He just usually has 4 fouls in the first half, and he doesn't ever get to play.
Right.
So my second question to you guys is what does New Orleans need to be able to win moving forward? Is Zion the answer? Is he the one that gets them to maybe out of the 8 seed into that 4 or 5 seed range, or are they going to have to continue to draft or sign to get better?
I'm going to speak my one piece of this because I am out of my element on this topic, but I don't think Zion. I don't think Zion is the answer to any question, personally.
I fully agree with you. I think Zion is a special talent, but it's somehow kind of a mix. Again, what we were talking about with Ben Simmons before, where if you're a professional athlete, your sole responsibility is to keep yourself in good physical shape. And there are so many resources at your availability to do so. You need a nutritionist, the team will provide it. You need a doctor, a team will provide it. You need physical therapy, the team will provide it. Weights, again, on down the list. Me, myself, if I want to lose 20 pounds, it's a lot harder for me to do than a guy like Zion Williamson, because I don't have the same resources. I don't have, I can't hire a personal chef to make me meals that are satisfying, but also good for me. You know what I mean? It'd be a lot easier, in my opinion, to lose weight in that kind of form, instead of being like, well, I'm going to just go buy a cheeseburger because I'm tired. So
right.
That's a long-winded way to kind of reverse and ask you this, Todd. If you really do believe that Brandon Ingram is this player who can carry a team, wouldn't you at this point not trade Zion?
Yeah, no, I think that at this point in time where New Orleans is, I don't think there's any reason to dispose of Zion. I just think that he's not going to ever live up to the expectation that ball is life and social media presented him to be to the world of basketball. To me, I don't think Zion was ever going to be a top tier talent in the NBA. I never, ever saw him, even at Duke, when he had everything tied out to him for the minute. And you saw how much of a real athletic specimen that he could be at Duke, because that was when he was at his peak. That first game that they played, and he's 6'7" or 6'8", and he was 275, and he looked like he was ripped straight out of the movie 300, out there clanging and banging on the boards. Like that was great. But even then at Duke, I just didn't see Zion as this great player. So I don't see him as being the answer for New Orleans, though.
I actually kind of disagree with that just a little bit. And my reasoning behind it is exactly how Zion played last year. I mean, he was outstanding. He was like one of the best players in the league. And here's the thing, in a shortened season, how many games did they play last year? Was it like 60 or something, or 70? But he played
70.
Yeah, 70. He played 61 of those games. He's averaging 33 minutes a game, 27 points. Like, that is like insane what he did last year. If you can put that all together, Zion Williamson is a top 5 NBA talent. I actually do believe that. I think he's going to eat himself out of the league. Like, really, like, to the point where
Go back to
he
Jamarcus Russell.
can't do that. What's that?
Go back to Jamarcus Russell.
Yeah, honestly, kind of. And honestly, the crazy thing is when we were talking about the fantasy draft earlier, I'm very comfortable taking Doncic at number 2. Doncic even came into the year this year. Like, I don't understand how a professional athlete can start a season out of shape. James Harden, Zion Williamson, Luka Doncic, like players like that are that gifted, good, and talented. Like, that is an immediate red flag for me from a front office perspective. And when you're a small market like New Orleans, I don't think Zion's trade value is going to go up from here. I'm selling stock in Zion. So if I'm the Pelicans, I'm trying to trade him to like the Knicks or a team that just is going to give a king's ransom for a player like that.
Right. Yeah. I think that's your best case scenario, right? You got to trade him into one of the 5 big cities to be able to get some sort of ROI on him. And you're still losing your investment on him, right? Because when you draft somebody at number 1 overall, you have a specific expectation for that person, right? You think that person is going to be the one that takes you into the playoffs and leads your team by example. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I think Zion, he just lacks discipline. He's not a disciplined athlete. You don't gain that much weight, regardless of if you can't use your legs because you have a foot injury or whatever. The world as a professional athlete, you have access to, you just said it, you have access to every single thing you need to stay healthy and be successful. That is at your fingertips with one phone call. And Zion has made the decision as a professional athlete that rather than showing that he could continue to be disciplined through adversity, he's just taking a break. I don't think you get to take a break as a professional athlete. You don't. No. You have to have your body, and I mean that in the sense that, you can't allow your body to move in such one direction so far that you have to work 10 times harder to get it back to the normal direction.
Right.
And Aaron's right. He's never going to be the same. I don't think you're ever going to get that same player. It's hard to gain that much weight and then go back to being lean and then being able to and have that maintenance to be that lean.
Right.
And it's going to require constant attention.
He almost needs a babysitter. Like, I think that's why he was so good in college, because in college you have that babysitter. Right. You have someone looking at you every second of the day. When you go to the NBA or become pro, you're in the adult world now.
You're an adult. You're a professional.
Yeah. So I almost think if I'm his management team or his agent or whatever, I'm almost having paying someone to just slap the cheeseburger out of his hand and hand him a salad.
Too many beignets.
And
New Orleans is an awful city to try to be healthy in.
Man, you can eat yourself into the bottom of the box in any city. I don't care where you're at.
Yeah,
it's true. But Todd, you had made the point, like, there's an expectation when you draft somebody number 1, and I totally agree with that. But if you're drafting somebody number 1 overall, you're not drafting a player, you're drafting an asset. That's really what you're doing. Like, great, if it can show up as success on the court, that's great. But you need to take the best player available always when you're drafting like that. And right now, to me, Zion is a diminishing asset. So I'm actually trying to offload that right now, because right now you have him putting an amazing season on tape last. Yes, he got injured. You're not going to be able to trade him as if he had played this whole year and played that same season over again. But I really don't know that it's going to get better before it gets worse. I also don't know that you're going to be able to re-sign him anyway, because he doesn't seem like the kind of guy that wants to just chill in New Orleans. It's not really a great basketball market. It's a small market. Maybe he likes the beignets, you're right, and he just wants to stick around. But at best, he's going to do the same thing that every athlete in his position does, is sign the gigantic contract and then a year in say, I want to be traded. And that's the position you don't want to be in, because then you lose the leverage. Right now, you're trading a guy on a rookie contract. You're going to be able to get the best assets. You have to match minimum salary to do it, which means you can take in a bunch of first round picks while probably getting a guy or two who is a young up and comer already. And you're showing this series that you have a decent roster with Ingram. I really like what CJ McCollum has brought to this team. Zion as a player is probably better suited elsewhere than New Orleans, unfortunately, based on that market's makeup. And, as a Cleveland fan, I kind of compare it to, we were never going to, sign a free agent like Jarrett Allen, but we just happen to be in a great position to be that third team in a trade to facilitate so James Harden can be moved. Those are the kind of moves you need to make when you're a small market team.
Absolutely. Yep. That's a perfect point. So before we get to the last topic of the night, get to a couple of these comments here. Dale says, imagine if Kuzma, Ingram, Lonzo were all on the same team. And then he said, wasn't the trap god Alex Caruso on that squad as well? The answer to your question is yes. Alex Caruso was on that team for 1 year before Lonzo was dispersed of.
As a LeBron James fan, it's because, obviously he wanted me a championship. I'm going to always be on that fan. Terrible GM, like just awful. The Westbrook trade we've seen this year, we talked about that a second ago. He just trades assets for his friends. And I know he's not the GM, but LeBron has always had the most influence over front offices because of the way he structures his contracts. That is like selling Google at like $30 and being like, that's fine. Let's just grab Blockbuster stock. It's high.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not a lot of homework done on those.
No. Dale also says the Pelicans need a point guard. They should draft some additional depth. I agree. I think the depth that they have right now kind of falters out after you get behind Larry Nance Jr. and Alvarado. You kind of lose your depth after that. You got to be able to run probably 8 to 10 people on a roster to be able to be successful in the NBA. And then he said, Jamarcus Russell studies game tape as well as Zion passes by Dunkin' Donuts. Ouch. Probably true. I think that Jamarcus Russell story is still one of my favorite stories of all time for just one of the biggest blunders for an athlete to make.
Was it though? He still got picked first overall.
It's blitz packages.
Oh, wasn't it? It was like he got handed the playbook. And there was something
and it was empty. Yeah. No,
okay.
There was nothing in it. He got handed a.
I always heard that story as pre-draft, and I don't know why. I could be wrong.
No, he was in Oakland by then. So he was in Oakland.
Thank you.
He gets handed a playbook and tape. And they say, all right, we need you to study this, and then we're going to talk about it tomorrow. And they handed him an empty tape and an empty playbook. And he comes back into practice next day, like 45 minutes late. Like, hey, Jamarcus, what did you think about that tape we showed you? What was on there? Oh, blitz packages. And that was the end of the conversation. The guy could throw a football 80 yards on his ass, but has zero commitment to the game outside of being on the field.
Yeah, I always thought it was funny when they were like, can you see how far he can throw the ball from his knee? And I'm like, yeah, but that's how you give up a possession. Who cares if you can throw it from the knee?
Yeah, right. You're already down. Yeah. What does that matter? You're already down. Yeah. Jamarcus Russell did not translate well into the NFL. Absolute tragedy. Great story, though. I love that story.
Cautionary tale.
Where's that 30 for 30?
It's got to be coming soon. And Matt, you say that. I when I was training people more often than I do now, I use that as an example to the people that I was training. And I would occasionally sprinkle it. You the people that send you the emails, and at the end they're like, reply back with your favorite donut, right? And but nobody responds. Mm-hmm. So I would have these training things that I would set up for these guys, and on the last page, I would have them I would take the last page, and I would have them a spot at the very bottom, and it would spawn. They'd have to put their signature on it. And the last page was just you're basically saying that you read through all the documents, yada, yada, whatever. And this kid I had, he was great, super, super hardworking, understood the job really well. and we're like 6 weeks into the training, and I'm like, "Hey, man, you never finished your training manual." He's like, "What do you mean, dude? I finished it 3 weeks ago." It's like, "Dude, I never got that signed sheet." And this kid's 20 years old. He's ghost white. He's like, "Oh shit, what did I do? What did I do?" I'm like, "It's what you gotta do your homework, bro. That's how you get good. You gotta be able to make sure that you go through every step of the way to make sure you're doing your job right." And I think Jamarcus Russell is a perfect example of that.
Yep.
Yeah, and here's the thing: is you're not even goading them. It's like here, it's on the last page. Like even if you're gonna like skim it, you're gonna see that. Or if it's a blank fucking tape or paper, as long as you open it, you got the assignment.
Couldn't even bother to open it.
It's not like, oh, it was on page 16 of 55 and I missed it. Like that's excusable.
No. Right. No, this Jamarcus Russell just decided to drive home and keep that book in the car. He kept the playbook in the car.
Well,
all right.
What happens when all those contracts were guaranteed?
Yeah,
That's
really.
a fact. So
this goes my favorite part. Let's go.
It is time for the last segment of the evening, which is who the fuck it is. Now, Matt, you're probably wondering, why does Todd keep saying that? Why does he keep speaking very gently into the microphone when he says it? Well, I'm going to give you some clues. I'm going to give you 3 clues, and they're not cupcake clues. That's the thing. I don't want to give it to you on a silver platter. Make your. And so far, Aaron has trumped me in most of my
no, you
that I've provided.
The first time I came on, I got like Doug Christie. I don't even remember, but it was they were some deep cuts, and I got a lot of them. And then the second time, he was just like, "I'm going to stump the fucking Schwab. Like I'm not even going to give this guy a chance."
My ego was bruised. I needed to be built back up. I slept great that night. I felt good. So now we're back. And so what I do is I usually have 3 people, again, 3 to 4 clues. And then I'll give you guys each a few minutes to give me some guesses. And then I'll go through the rundown. So first NBA athlete, former Arkansas Razorback. His nickname for those of you that are still watching, and if you could dig in, is the Armadillo Cowboy, and is most known for his time as a prolific scorer for the Atlanta Hawks in the late 2000s.
Okay. The late 2000s, prolific scorer, Arkansas. All right, let's dive into those Hawks teams. It's obviously fuck. This is a good one. Late 2000s, so like
late 2000s.
07, 08, 09.
Yep, and then into the 2010s, he had some good years with the Nets as well.
Arkansas is throwing me way off here. I don't know many Arkansas players. I'm feeling stumped. Like Hunter? No, that's not.
He is either a 7 or an 8-time NBA All-Star though. So there's some notoriety. There's some respect on his name.
Oh, okay. So it's not Jeff Teague. It's not
Jeff Teague.
It's not Josh Smith because he didn't even go to college.
Josh Smith.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
I'm like running through the Hawks of the time. Seven-time All-Star, and I'm not getting Jesus. Joe Johnson or
Joe Johnson. It's Joe Johnson. Beautiful. So
see, I feel so. You said the Nets, which was actually threw me off, and I know he played there. I'm surprised there wasn't any Suns topic on it or a Suns clue. That was the part that threw me off.
Right. Well, if I would have given you a Suns clue, you would have gotten it in 25 seconds. I gotta throw you. I still gotta throw you off the scent a little bit.
I got it. That's great. That was a good one.
I'm not giving you the cupcakes. All right. Second one. a current NBA player, actually played with Kevin Durant at the University of Texas. And most recently got his largest contract with the Orlando Magic in 2016. But prior to that, had never gotten more than a 1-year deal outside of his rookie contract.
What's his fucking name?
And he's played with a myriad of teams. I could go through the list for you, but I believe that he's been on, I think, who he's currently rostered with, he's on his 7th team in 14 years, 13 years.
I can't ask questions, so that's not. I'm forgetting his name right now, and I know who it is, I think, and it's driving me crazy.
He's a point guard.
Is it? I'm gonna go Jeopardy rules, where I only have to say his last name, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ross.
No. It is not. It is not Terrence Ross. I think is that the direction you were going?
That is. Yeah.
Dale, is not Patrick Beverly. Similar style of player, though. So you are in the ballpark of defensive-minded point guards.
Man, he's on the Magic now, or wait,
he's actually on the Bucks. He's actually on the Bucks now. The Bucks just signed him at the end of last season.
He got a bunch of money from the Magic.
He did. It's his largest contract he's ever received in his professional career.
I'm out. I'm tapping. I don't know.
It is DJ Augustin.
DJ Augustin. That's a good one. Okay. That's a great one.
All right. Last one is from the early 2000s.
Drafted by the Bobcats, wasn't he?
He was drafted by the Bobcats. That is correct. And he actually was out of the NBA in 2013 and got signed on a 10-day contract by the Bulls and dropped like 40 in his first, like 34 in his first night.
Yeah.
And they signed him for the rest of the season after that. And then the following season, the Magic gave him like a 4-year, $30 million deal, which was ridiculous.
You know what's funny about DJ Augustin? I've seen a bunch of interviews from players where they're basically asked, like, basically the question of like, who are you surprised isn't not better, but like isn't. Everyone would always say DJ Augustin. Like, I think he was just like one of those guys that you see the like off-season workout video or they're all playing pickup and the guy just dominates pickup ball. But for whatever reason, it just doesn't translate.
He is. So I think a lot of, at least my opinion of watching him, is that he is so grossly undersized in today's basketball that he can't be to the level that he was. Because when he was in Texas, he actually... The year that he played with Kevin Durant, they went to the Sweet 16, I think, and he got them there because KD was dropping like 20 a night, but everybody knew that he was the best player in basically in that class. But Augustin was the one that was getting them to the promised land. So I love him. I actually used to draft him every year as like my second pick or last pick in fantasy basketball because a point guard's a top 5-round pick is guaranteed to get hurt. You could slide DJ Augustin into that role without having to burn too many free agent spots.
I always remember DJ Augustin being an amazing 2K player, not because of his skill set, but he just had such a smooth shot that it was so easy to like find his peak. Yeah, it was just smooth.
Yes. Great 2K reference, and you're exactly right. NBA 2K like 15.
That mid-range shot was just unstoppable.
He's one of the best shooters. All right, last player. So he was a member of the 2002 Maryland Terrapin National Championship team, the only year that they've ever won the national championship in the history of that program. Most known for his years as a Seattle Supersonic. Did not go crazy padding the stats, but he was an average damn near close to a double-double through his career, and had to retire in 2010 due to an enlarged heart, which caused him to retire from the NBA.
Oh, Tractor Trailer.
No, he died.
No, oh, he played at Michigan.
He was Michigan.
yeah, he played at Michigan.
Yeah. Sorry, I heard Enlarged Heart, and I was like, oh, I got this.
No, he just died. He just died.
Yeah, he did die recently, didn't he?
Tractor didn't make it. He also, that's a guy that you saw pictures of him, and he was like damn near 500 pounds. He really allowed himself to get away.
All right, run through these again.
Okay. Part of the 2002 Maryland National Championship team. Drafted by the Clippers in 2002, but most known for his time in Seattle. And then had to retire from the NBA in the 2010s for an enlarged heart, which caused an arrhythmia.
Why do I want to say it's like Jawan or what was the guy from the mat? No, that's not right. I can see your. I feel like I'm close almost, or like you're.
So you're. It's not Jawan. It's.
I'm in the neighborhood though, right?
You are in the neighborhood of the player because if I think I'm thinking of who you're thinking of from Maryland, you're in a similar position.
Is it like Jawan Dixon or something? Or
no, it's not Jawan Dixon, but he was a part of that team. You are correct. He was a guard. He was a forward. He was like a small shooting guard, small forward. This guy was more of like a power forward center.
For the Sonics. Oh, Wilcox.
Chris Wilcox. That is
yes.
Well done.
The dreads. Yeah, that guy was like a 14-10 guy a night.
Yes, Chris Wilcox.
All right.
Arguably one of the most consistent players of the
he was a lunch pail guy. That's the guy who brings his lunch pail. You know what's funny is I didn't even know that he played on that Maryland team.
Really?
No. Like at 2002, I wasn't really watching college basketball a ton, but there was something about the Sonics piece of that is what. And then when you said it was a big man, that's where I got it.
That Maryland team is arguably one of the best college basketball teams that have ever stepped foot on a college basketball floor. Who
else was on that team? Was there anyone else that was on that team?
Juan Dixon, Chris Wilcox, and Steve Blake.
Oh, Steve Blake. Okay.
And Steve Blake was unbelievable at that point in time.
He's a dog.
And then he loved it. All right. So I think that wraps it up for In the Post, fellas. Matt, thank you so much for coming on here.
Thanks for having
joining
me.
us.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for repping.
Got the swag on today.
Yeah.
You got the swag.
Yeah, zoom that in.
Got the swag. So
I'm always looking for an excuse to golf. So, and that's the other thing too, is like for the Masters part of it, there's something about the Masters where it's like that time of year where the weather starts to change a little bit. And then you see golf on television and you're taking like naps where you can maybe open the windows. And
there's like, nothing more hopeful yet painful than seeing the Masters ads come on in like January.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Pretty green.
But I swear to God, every
spring
time
is coming, but it's snow outside.
Every time the Masters comes on, it's like the fucking dinner bell where you're like, oh, it's time to golf soon.
Absolutely.
Have you guys been down there?
I have not. No.
It's Mecca, man.
Have you been there?
Actually, you can't see a bit right here. Bam.
Oh, look at that.
Ooh.
I went the Euro. Yeah, that's when Tiger won. Yeah.
Were you what date were you there? All the days?
Oh, really?
Yeah. No, well, unfortunately, we had practice round, so we were there Tuesday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
So, but still, I mean, we were there.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, you were still at the Masters. That's
do they still like? Take
I still spent
stuff?
I still spent $1,700 in the gift shop. I mean, it's right.
Yeah.
You come back with a bunch of bags and you're just like,
relax. They do it right though. You don't have to come back with it. You buy all the things you want, and of course, I'm getting text from second cousins and whoever else. Give me a T-shirt, give me a polo, give me a hat. And as soon as you check out, there's a FedEx station right next to it. You can just ship it to yourself.
No, that's so
They are
smart.
smart. Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, but then when the 4 packages show up at your doorstep and your wife opens the door, you're like, it's cool.
Fuck is this?
It's cool. We're here. It's fine. It's not online.
I have the most supportive wife ever. I went down there. My son's birthday is Saturday. So she was 8.5, 9 months pregnant, and she still let me go to Augusta.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I know we're signing off, so real quick, the Masters, that's one of the coolest things ever. Like, just, I love that they like did they take your phone, like even just for the Tuesday part of it?
No, but if you were caught like taking pictures or recording, they had enough people kind of just intermingling around that they would make you either put it back, and if you got like multiple warnings, you were.
So I love that. Like, I'm watching Saturday and Sunday of the Masters, and you see whoever it is just making a money putt on 17 or 18. Everyone's watching.
Yeah.
There's nobody that's standing over there like, oh, hey, let me just like. There's just something about seeing that in the background of it, and I love that about the Masters, where it's just this like ritual history. And were you able to get the like $2 sandwiches and $4 beers?
I had the pimento cheese, and a beer at Amen Corner, and I can die a happy golfer now.
That's
awesome.
That's amazing.
That's so awesome.
But getting back on topic, yeah, you guys more love you have come down. There's 2 things I promise when you come to our tournament is that you won't leave hungry and you won't leave sober.
So don't drive.
I would, or bring a driver. Yeah, I always I've got like I said, my wife, she supports me in all those things. So she either comes and gets me, or I've had to Uber home from that event.
Well, Matt, my driver usually craps out around hole 7. So
But no, we do a lot of fun stuff. I don't know how many outings you guys have ever played in, but long drive and long putt, all that stuff. We have one of those on every single hole.
That's awesome.
We average 120 or 130 players. So it's a big event. The course we hosted at is the course we play on is I purposely pick an easy course because a lot of our players are hackers, and they're only out there to support the cause, or because they know the Beatenhard family, or whatever the case may be. But there's some short par 4s, there's some short par 5s, and it's just a fun scramble course. It's not that fun of a course to play on your own, but it's a really fun scramble course.
I love it. And I know we're going to blast out the link, Todd, and I think we can probably put together a Rally Towel foursome. That's what I'm thinking.
I'm in.
Great.
Look, here's the thing. I also have an excellent wife, and I have a Honda Odyssey. So that means
lots of people.
That means there's a DD involved.
Right.
That's great.
Aaron,
you could fit 4 sets of clubs in a Honda Odyssey. I know that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about cargo.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. No, we're good. We're good to go. All right. Matt, thank you again for coming out.
Thank you, Matt.
Rob,
thank you guys. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Rob, thanks for tuning in. A little late. Come back and watch it. Watch it back here in about 30 minutes. It'll be ready for you. Tomorrow, Line to Gain, Thursday night draft
talk.
Round 1. We will be live covering the NFL draft, and it could potentially be all 4 of us on Rally Towel Sports Line to Gain, which has never happened in the history of Rally Towel Sports. It would be quite the experience. Stop in. We're going to be drinking some bourbons, probably some beers. It's going to be a good night. Make sure you got that alarm clock set for about 45 minutes later than usual, because it's going to take you an extra hour after that 45-minute alarm clock to get out of bed, because the draft, they project the draft to be done around 12:45 tomorrow.
Oof.
So,
well, it's mountain time. Yeah.
So
that's the other thing. We our golf's in Kentucky, and we in conjunction with the golf, we do a bourbon raffle, and we give away, or we raffle off some really nice bourbon.
Well, I thought I said I was in already, but I'll go ahead and just plug my favorite Kentucky bourbon. Weller's, have it right here.
Last year we gave away one of the baskets was 3 different Weller bottles: the green, the blue, and the orange.
Well, here's the question, Matt: do you have to be good at golf to win these things?
Those are separate. Those are just raffles. So it's just a basket raffle.
Then I'm in.
You can buy as many tickets. Buy as many tickets as you want.
Absolutely. All right.
We raised almost as much money on a bourbon last year as the golf.
That's Perfect.
bet.
That's exactly
That's what you got to
you
do.
should-
That's
yeah.
amazing, man. I love
There's-
this, man. That's great.
Yeah. So I'll be plugging the memorial tomorrow. I'll set it up.
Awesome.
We'll share it on Facebook. We'll share it on Twitter. So we'll get the name out for you. Hopefully get you guys
Great.
signed up. Maybe hopefully another 30 more people. You at least have an additional foursome that's going to
Great.
be playing together.
Well, it is limited. It is limited to numbers. We're allowed 144 golfers, and we've never sold it out. We've come close, but I would love to sell it out one year.
All right.
We're gonna do it
Well,
this year. We're gonna
do it. We're gonna
Awesome.
we're gonna help you out make it happen, man.
Great.
Thank you again. Make sure you guys tune in tomorrow for Line to Gain. I am Todd. With me is Aaron, and again Matt. And everyone have a good night.
Thanks, guys.
Night, everybody.